She was just a rookie, until the SEAL Admiral learned what Iron Widow meant. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The sun hung low over the Pacific, casting an orange hue across the waves that crashed against the hull of the USS Valor. Admiral Carter stood at the helm, a smirk dancing on his lips as he glanced over the crew. "What's your call sign, Iron Widow? I hope it's not something embarrassing." His laughter echoed, but it faded abruptly when he turned to see her. "Abigail, Iron Widow." Steele stood at ease, her eyes sharp and unyielding. The nickname, a reminder of her fallen comrades, held weight that went beyond mere humor. In that charged moment, the laughter died, replaced by a heavy silence. Abigail's heart raced, the memories of the past flooding back. She was no joke. She was a warrior forged in the fires of loss. The crew's eyes darted between them, sensing the tension. "What's so funny, Admiral?" she replied, her voice steady, yet laced with a challenge. The air thickened, and the Admiral's smirk faltered. He had underestimated her, and that realization hung like a storm cloud. Before he could answer, a distant explosion rattled the ship, shaking everyone from their momentary daze. Alarms blared, and the crew sprang into action. "Battle stations!" came the shout, but Abigail remained still, staring at the Admiral. The moment stretched, a silent confrontation that spoke volumes. With a nod, she turned and bolted toward the command center, determination igniting her every step. Behind her, Admiral Carter felt an unfamiliar chill run down his spine as he realized he might have poked the wrong bear. As they rushed to their stations, the ship rocked with the force of another explosion. Chaos erupted, the sounds of boots pounding the metal deck echoing in her ears. Abigail's mind raced, the adrenaline flooding her senses. She had trained for this, but the stakes felt different now. It was no longer just a mission, it was personal. The laughter had faded, and in its place was a resolve that burned bright within her. But even amidst the turmoil, a flicker of doubt lingered. What if she failed? What if the past haunted her once again? The weight of her call sign pressed down like a lead weight, but she shook it off. She was Iron Widow, and she would rise from the ashes of her losses. The Admiral's laughter would be silenced, not by her anger, but by her strength. As she reached the command center, she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was ahead. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a battle that would redefine her. The sun had barely risen over Coronado, California, casting a golden glow on the Navy SEAL training grounds. Abigail Steele was just a recruit then, a hopeful young woman filled with dreams of serving her country and making her late husband proud. The memory of him flooded her mind as she jogged through the obstacle course, pushing herself harder with every step. She could almost hear his voice, urging her on. "You've got this, Abby. Keep pushing." But the training was brutal. Day after day, she faced the relentless challenges designed to break even the strongest of men. There were whispers behind her back, doubts about whether a woman could truly belong in the elite ranks of the SEALs. She was determined to prove them wrong, her heart fueled by a fierce longing to honor her husband's legacy. Each obstacle she conquered was a step closer to that dream, but the weight of expectation hung heavy on her shoulders. At the end of the day, exhausted and battered, she would sit alone, reflecting on the sacrifices she had made. Her fellow recruits would gather to share stories, laughter echoing through the barracks, but Abigail often stayed back, haunted by the ghosts of her past. The loss of her husband, a fellow SEAL, loomed over her like an ever-present shadow. She had not just lost him, she had lost a part of herself, yet she refused to let that define her. As weeks turned into months, the competition grew fiercer. Abigail excelled, but with success came jealousy. One day, during a training exercise, she overheard two male recruits snickering about her call sign, Iron Widow. "What a joke," one of them had said. She's just a distraction out there. Their laughter pricked her heart, igniting a fire within. She vowed to turn their mockery into fuel, to become the soldier they never expected her to be. The day finally came for her first live mission. Standing on the edge of the helicopter, the wind whipping through her hair, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The adrenaline surged as they descended into hostile territory. "Stay focused, Iron Widow," her commanding officer barked, and she nodded, her resolve solidifying. This was her moment to shine, to silence the doubters, and forge her own path. The mission ahead would test her in ways she never imagined, but she was ready. Months passed, and Abigail's reputation within the SEAL team grew. Yet the shadows of her past continued to haunt her. Every time she donned her gear, she felt the weight of her husband's memory, the echoes of his laughter intermingling with the fear of failure. The team respected her, but she still sensed a divide, a barrier that separated her from complete acceptance. They saw her as Iron Widow, a symbol of resilience, but could they truly see her? One night, under the shimmering stars, Abigail found herself on the rooftop of their base, staring out at the ocean. The waves crashed against the rocks below, their rhythmic sound mirroring her tumultuous emotions. She thought about the mission that had gone wrong, the one that had taken her husband's life. Guilt washed over her like a cold tide. If only she had been there, if only she had acted faster, would he still be alive? The questions tormented her, and the burden felt unbearable. Meanwhile, Admiral Carter was observing her from a distance, intrigued by her quiet strength. He had heard the whispers and seen the doubts, but there was something about Abigail that resonated with him. He admired her tenacity and spirit, but he couldn't shake the feeling that beneath her bravado lay a deep-seated pain that could resurface at any moment. It was both fascinating and terrifying. As days turned into nights, the tension between them simmered. Admiral Carter often joked with the crew, but the laughter felt hollow when he turned his gaze toward Abigail. He saw her as a challenge, a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. She seemed unbreakable, yet he sensed the cracks beneath her tough exterior. The conflict within him grew. He wanted to push her, to see her true limits, but he also feared the emotional fallout. Unbeknownst to him, Abigail was planning her next move. She had been training harder than ever, determined to earn her place among her peers. She had overheard the Admiral's jokes, and while they stung, they spurred her on. She would show them all what it meant to be Iron Widow, not just a nickname, but a badge of honor earned through grit and sacrifice. The winds of change were beginning to stir, and she was ready to embrace them. The day of the mission arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Abigail stood at the edge of the helicopter, the wind whipping through her hair, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She glanced at the team, their faces a mix of determination and fear. Admiral Carter was beside her, barking orders and ensuring everyone was in position. "Let's show them what we're made of," he said, his voice firm. As they descended, the landscape below transformed from lush greenery to a war-torn village, smoke rising in the distance. The reality of their mission hit hard. It wasn't just training anymore. Lives were at stake. Abigail's heart raced, memories of her husband flooding back, but she pushed them aside. She had to be focused. She had to be strong. The landing was rough, and chaos erupted as they hit the ground. Gunfire rang out, and the team sprang into action. Abigail moved swiftly, her training kicking in as she navigated the terrain with precision. Yet, amid the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Admiral Carter, struggling to maintain control. A surge of protectiveness washed over her. He was her superior, but he was also a man she respected. She couldn't let him falter. "Admiral, to your left!" she shouted, just as a nearby explosion rocked the ground. He turned, eyes wide, and she saw the flicker of gratitude. But it was short-lived. The mission was spiraling, and with each passing moment, the danger intensified. Abigail felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. If, She failed. It wouldn't just be her life at stake. It would be his, too. As they pushed deeper into hostile territory, the stakes rose. Abigail's instincts kicked in, leading her to take charge of a critical situation. "We need to flank from the right," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The team followed her lead, and for a moment she felt a surge of pride. But then, as the dust settled, a chilling realization struck her. This wasn't just a battle against enemies. It was a battle against her own fears and doubts. Amid the chaos, the Admiral's earlier joke echoed in her mind. It felt like a taunt, a reminder of the uphill battle she faced not only against the enemy, but also against the perceptions of those around her. She was Iron Widow, yes, but she was also Abigail Steele, a woman fighting for her place in a world that often underestimated her. The tension reached a boiling point as the mission took a turn for the worse. The mission spiraled into chaos, with gunfire echoing in the air and smoke obscuring visibility. Abigail's heart raced as she led her team through the crumbling streets, their senses heightened by the adrenaline coursing through their veins. They were moving as one, instinctively anticipating each other's actions, but with every step, the danger loomed larger. Suddenly, a deafening explosion ripped through the air, throwing Abigail off her feet. She landed hard on the ground, the wind knocked out of her lungs. Dazed, she struggled to regain her bearings as shouts filled her ears. "Iron Widow!" The Admiral's voice cut through the noise, and she instinctively scrambled to her feet, adrenaline surging anew. "Status report!" Abigail yelled, her voice rising above the chaos. The team rallied around her, their faces a mix of fear and determination. "We need to regroup and assess our strategy," she continued, her mind racing. She glanced at the Admiral, who was surveying the damage with a furrowed brow. His earlier joviality had vanished, replaced by the weight of responsibility. In that moment, she felt a connection, a shared understanding of the stakes at hand. The Admiral was not just a leader, he was a man grappling with the same fears that plagued her. For the first time, she saw his vulnerability. He was human, just like her. But the pressure of their situation loomed large. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. As they gathered for a quick huddle, Abigail took charge. "We split into two teams. Team Alpha will provide cover fire while Team Bravo secures the perimeter. We're not leaving anyone behind." The determination in her voice sparked a fire in the others. They nodded, ready to follow her lead. In that moment, something shifted. The dynamic between her and the Admiral had changed. "Let's do it," he said, a newfound respect shining in his eyes. Abigail felt a rush of pride. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. They were no longer just ranks on a ship. They were a unit, bound by loyalty and purpose. As they moved out, she felt the weight of her call sign transform. Iron Widow was no longer a burden. It was a badge of honor. As the mission unfolded, Abigail felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, pushing her forward. The air was thick with tension as they moved through the ruins of the village. Gunfire rang out, and the chaos intensified. Every step felt like a dance with death, but Abigail was determined to lead her team to safety. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the air, and Abigail's heart sank. One of her team members, a young man named Jake, had been hit. She rushed to his side, her mind racing. "Stay with me, Jake. You're going to be okay." Tears stung her eyes as she applied pressure to his wound, her hands shaking. The weight of responsibility crashed down on her. She had promised to keep them safe, and now she felt like she was failing. Admiral Carter was at her side in an instant, his demeanor serious. "We need to get him out of here now." His voice was firm, but Abigail could see the concern etched on his face. They were losing precious time, and every second counted. Abigail nodded, her heart heavy with the reality of their situation. She knew they had to move quickly, but the image of Jake's pale face haunted her. "On my count, we're going to lift him together," she instructed, gathering the strength to push through the panic. The team rallied around her, their resolve solidifying. 1, 2, 3. Together they hoisted Jake onto a makeshift stretcher, and Abigail felt the weight of their collective fear. They were in this together, bound by friendship and loyalty. As they maneuvered through the debris, the sound of gunfire escalated. Abigail's heart raced, and her instincts kicked in. "Cover me!" she shouted, moving to provide cover for the others. The adrenaline surged as she fired back at the enemy, her focus narrowing to the task at hand. She was determined to get them out alive, no matter the cost. But just as they reached the extraction point, a blast rocked the ground beneath them. Abigail stumbled, her vision blurring as she fell to the ground. Panic surged through her as she tried to regain her footing. The world spun around her, and in that moment, she realized the true cost of war. She had not only lost a teammate, but had also put her own life on the line. The weight of her call sign felt heavier than ever, a reminder of the sacrifices that had come before her. The chaos continued to unfold around them, and Abigail struggled to regain her composure. She felt the weight of the world crushing down on her, the echoes of loss reverberating in her mind. As she looked up, she saw Admiral Carter rallying the remaining team members, his voice cutting through the turmoil. "We need to move, now!" Abigail pushed herself to her feet, determination coursing through her veins. She couldn't let fear consume her. She had to be the leader they needed. The team fell into formation behind her, their trust in her unwavering. She could feel the eyes of her comrades on her, a mixture of respect and fear. She was not just Iron Widow, she was their lifeline. As they navigated through the rubble, the stakes couldn't have been higher. They were on enemy territory, with danger lurking around every corner. Abigail's heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement propelling her forward. She had become a force to be reckoned with, and she would not back down. But as they moved deeper into hostile territory, the tension escalated. The sounds of gunfire grew closer, and Abigail's instincts kicked in. "We need to split up," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Team A, you take the left flank. Team B, stay close to me." The team acknowledged her orders, ready to follow her lead. As they advanced, Abigail felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her team, for Jake, and for the legacy of her husband. The adrenaline surged as they pressed on, each step a testament to their resilience. She could feel the weight of her call sign transforming into a symbol of strength and courage. But just as they reached the extraction point, a deafening explosion erupted nearby. The ground shook, and Abigail felt the world around her crumble. She stumbled, her heart racing as she tried to regain her footing. The chaos was overwhelming, and in that moment, she feared for her life. Would she be able to bring her team home, or was this the end of the line? The dust settled slowly, and for a moment, Abigail felt frozen in time. The sounds of chaos faded as she gathered her thoughts, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She blinked through the haze, searching for her team amidst the wreckage. The reality of their situation crashed down on her like a tidal wave. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice filled with desperation. "Over here!" came a response, and relief flooded her as she spotted him, alive but injured. The sight of him stirred something deep within her. She was fighting not just for her team, but for every fallen soldier who had ever sacrificed for their country. The weight of her call sign surged within her, igniting a fire of determination. "Stay with me, Jake," she urged, rushing to his side. The blood soaked through his uniform, but he smiled weakly. "I'm not going anywhere, Iron Widow." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. They were fighting for more than survival. They were fighting for each other. The bond they shared was unbreakable, forged through hardship and sacrifice. As they regrouped, Admiral Carter's voice rang out. "We need to fall back. Now!" The urgency in his tone snapped her back to reality. They were still in danger, and time was running out. Abigail took charge, her instincts kicking in. "Everyone move! We're getting out of here!" With the team in tow, they navigated through the debris, adrenaline propelling them forward. Abigail felt the weight of her call sign transform into a shield, protecting her and her comrades. She was Iron Widow, and no enemy would take that away from her. As they reached the extraction point, the helicopter hovered above them, the sound of the blades roaring in her ears. But just as they were about to board, a figure emerged from the shadows, an enemy combatant aiming directly at them. Time slowed as Abigail's instincts kicked in. "Get down!" she yelled, pushing Jake out of harm's way. A shot rang out, and everything went dark. Abigail awoke in a haze, the world spinning around her. The sounds of chaos faded into a muffled echo, and she blinked against the harsh light filtering through the dust-filled air. Pain radiated through her body, a sharp reminder of the gunshot that had pierced the tension moments before. Panic surged within her, and she tried to sit up, but her strength faltered. "Abigail!" A familiar voice cut through the haze. It was Admiral Carter, his face a mask of concern as he knelt beside her. "Stay still. You took a hit." His hands were gentle yet firm, checking for any visible wounds. She could see the worry etched in his features, a stark contrast to the bravado he often displayed. "What about the team?" she gasped, her voice hoarse. The memories of their escape flooded back. Jake, the enemy combatant, the helicopter. "Did everyone get out?" He hesitated, the weight of the moment hanging heavily between them. "We lost a few," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But Jake's alive. He made it." Relief washed over her, but it was tinged with sorrow. The losses weighed heavily on her heart. She had promised to protect them, and yet here she was, incapacitated. "Where are we?" Abigail asked, trying to push through the pain. She needed to know. She needed to act. "Field hospital," he replied softly, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "You're safe now. Just focus on healing." The room around them was dimly lit, filled with the sounds of medical equipment beeping and murmurs from the staff. Abigail took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythmic sound of her heartbeat. She was alive, but the cost of that survival felt unbearably high. She had fought not just for herself, but for every life intertwined with hers. As the adrenaline faded, the reality of her situation crashed over her like a tidal wave. She had been shot, and the mission had unraveled in ways she could never have anticipated. The faces of her fallen comrades haunted her thoughts, and guilt clawed at her insides. She had trained for this, but the stakes had never felt so real. "Abby," the Admiral's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "You did everything you could. We'll honor those we lost, I promise." His words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into the storm of her emotions. She met his gaze, searching for assurance. "But what if it wasn't enough?" she whispered, feeling the tears well in her eyes. "It was enough to save lives," he replied, his voice steady. "We will not forget their sacrifices, and we will ensure their legacy lives on." Abigail nodded slowly, the weight of his promise grounding her. She could feel the resolve building within her, a determination that refused to be extinguished. She would not let their sacrifices be in vain. Iron Widow was more than a call sign. It was a commitment to honor those who had fought beside her. Days turned into weeks as Abigail recovered in the field hospital, the pain gradually fading, but the memories ever present. Each night, she would lie awake, replaying the events of that fateful mission, the faces of her fallen comrades clear in her mind. But through the darkness, a sense of purpose began to emerge. Admiral Carter visited often, his presence a steady reminder that she was not alone in her grief. Together, they began to plan a memorial for their fallen teammates, a way to honor their bravery and sacrifice. Abigail found solace in the idea, a way to channel her pain into something meaningful. As she regained her strength, she felt a renewed sense of clarity. The weight of her call sign transformed from a burden into a badge of honor. She was Iron Widow, yes, but she was also Abigail Steele, an embodiment of resilience and strength forged through loss. Finally, the day of the memorial arrived, and Abigail stood before her comrades, A sea of uniforms gathered to pay tribute. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the gathering. As she stepped forward to speak, her heart raced. This was her moment to honor not just her fallen brothers and sisters, but also to share her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. "I stand before you today not just as Iron Widow," she began, her voice steady and clear, "but as a woman who has experienced loss, who has fought through the darkest moments, and who has found strength in the shadows. We've lost too many, and each sacrifice is a reminder of why we fight." Tears glistened in the eyes of her comrades, and she could feel their support surrounding her like a warm embrace. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for each other, to carry on the legacy of those who came before us. Their bravery will not be forgotten." As the ceremony continued, Abigail felt a deep sense of healing wash over her. The memories she had once feared now fueled her resolve. She was not defined by her losses. She was shaped by them. The Admiral stood beside her, pride radiating from him as he recognized the strength that had emerged from her pain. In the weeks that followed, Abigail returned to duty, her spirit unwavering. She became a mentor for new recruits, sharing her experiences and inspiring them to push through their fears. The nickname Iron Widow transformed into something powerful, an emblem of hope, resilience, and unyielding strength. As she stood on the deck of the USS Valor once more, looking out over the endless ocean, she felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. The battles she had fought had not been in vain. She was a warrior, a leader, and a friend. The Admiral's initial joke had sparked a journey of self-discovery, and she would carry that journey forward, one step at a time. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Abigail knew that as long as she lived, the legacy of her fallen comrades would live on. She was Iron Widow, and she would always rise from the ashes, stronger than before. The tides of change were upon her, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next.